Ahead on Straight Talk, with education and cost of living top of mind for voters.
Oregonians are smart. They know that free money is never free.
Candidates are making their case to lead the state of Oregon.
The legislature for far too long has not brought counties to the table to say, what are you experiencing and what do you need?
We sit down with a Marion County Republican entering the gubernatorial race next year. But first,
I'm hungry. Children are hungry. It's not fair to us.
with money to fund SNAP benefits held up by the government shutdown.
The recipients of these SNAP benefits need to understand it's going to take some time to receive this money.
Thousands across the Pacific Northwest now turning to local nonprofits for help.
We are seeing double the numbers of people coming that usually come.
Coming up, two of the largest organizations working to keep families and seniors fed. Right now on Straight Talk. Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Stephanie Domurat. Now, as of this taping on November 6th, the federal government is shut down, now in its 6th week. It's become the longest in U.S. history, and it's disrupting food assistance for millions of Americans. Now, the administration has said it will cover part of November's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits after a recent court order mandating it must pay for SNAP. But here in Oregon, it is still unclear when exactly that money will come. So 1 in 6 people in the state, that's more than 750,000, rely on SNAP. And without those funds, they're turning to food banks and other resources. Joining us today to talk about how this is impacting homebound seniors is the CEO of Meals on Wheels People, Suzanne Washington. Suzanne has led the organization since 2014, marking just over 11 years with the organization. Meals on Wheels People is a local nonprofit that served 1 million meals just last year to older adults in the Portland metro area who are mostly homebound. Also joining us today is Matt Newell-Ching. Matt is the Senior Manager of Public Policy at the Oregon Food Bank. As Manager of Public Policy, Matt advocates for policies affecting SNAP, school meals, and more. Matt and Suzanne, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Such an important topic, and of course this is very fluid, so we're recording this, could change by the time our viewers see this. But first, I want to talk about really just the demand. Of course, it is surging right now in our communities. Your organization, Matt, laid out a very interesting number that I think puts things in perspective. So the Oregon Food Bank, for every 1 meal it provides, SNAP provides 9 meals. That's huge. The food bank partners with agencies across the state. So can you describe for us what's happening on the ground right now?
Yeah, this is a really challenging time for the 1 in 6 Oregonians who participate in the SNAP program. And SNAP participants are, 40% of SNAP participants are kids. A lot of SNAP participants are parents, grandparents, people with disabilities, people who face challenges securing full-time work. And normally, in a normal month, people would receive their food assistance on their EBT cards between the 1st and the 9th of the month. And that is not happening right now. It's actually the first time in the program's over 50-year history where benefits have not been paid out at the beginning of the month. And so we're hearing stories across the state of people lining up for food at 6 in the morning, 4 in the morning. There's a food pantry that's outside of my house on our block. I have not seen the lines for food that long since the beginning of the pandemic. And of course the pandemic was caused by a global pandemic, and the really frustrating thing about this is that this is caused by people. These are choices. And so we're doing our best to respond, but like you said, for every 1 meal we provide, SNAP provides 9. Sometimes we think of ourselves as like sandbags, right? When the river rises a little bit, we can help with that. But this feels more like a tsunami that is coming toward our network, and people are stepping up, and we just ask that people continue to step up as people are awaiting when their benefits will arrive.
Suzanne, about 130,000 seniors in Oregon rely on SNAP benefits. You told me that. Right. Now, most of these people are on fixed incomes. Many of them, especially those you serve, are homebound, so they can't get to a food bank. This is extra challenging for those people. What are you seeing right now with seniors?
We are getting hundreds and hundreds of calls on the telephone as well as online. In fact, one of my client services told me this morning the phone's on fire. Right, can't keep up with it. We're enrolling people as fast as we can. Because, for example, a gal called us, she lives on $934 a month, but her rent is $750. You take away that SNAP, she has no food, right? Because she has to pay her other utilities and all her other expenses. So people are really worried. We're enrolling them, like I say, as fast as we can, and most of the time they burst out into tears because it's like, oh my God, thank you, right? But it's difficult. We served more than 300, added more than 300 new people just in the last couple of weeks.
Wow.
So it's a big deal, and people are really frightened and scared and going hungry.
And you've made a point to say that people haven't been waitlisted on this program in the past, and they still are not. Do you fear that that could change anytime soon?
Well, we do depend on the community to help, and we always have. We could not serve all the people we do in a usual year, a usual month. But in the month of October, we've already done more than 10,000 meals over what we anticipated. So our intent is we're going to keep going, and we're going to feed everybody that needs it, that's older and gives us a call, and we find out about them. But we are going to need help. Just like Matt said, we rely on the community to help and hope to goodness that stays up with the need.
Yeah, so I know you guys are both following very closely the policy around this, and of course people are waiting to know when the USDA will send the funds. A judge just today, on Thursday, ordered the administration to send the full SNAP amount to states. We're still going to see what happens with that. But I want to ask, do you know where any updates stand as of today and what that means for your organizations? Matt, let's start for you.
Yeah, obviously the sooner that benefits arrive on people's cards, the better, because when someone receives those benefits on your card, they get to go to the grocery store and pick out the foods that are best for their family, right? And the reality is, at food pantries, Oregon Food Banks Network has 1,200 agencies across the state. These are free food markets, food pantries, meal sites, and the volume of people that we're seeing right now. We're hearing stories about food pantries who are having to say, well, we have this set amount of food, and we're seeing more people, so what do we do? And so we're having to make these very difficult choices about whether to serve the same amount of people with a little bit less food per person. As far as what is happening with the state.
And when we could see these funds, or when people could see their EBT cards, have money in them again.
Yeah, so our partners at Oregon Department of Human Services, I know, are tracking this closely. They received a memo Tuesday morning trying to operationalize partial benefits. There was another memo that was sent late last night clarifying that they could send a little bit more. Today's court order. So we would probably say, ask our partners at the Oregon Department of Human Services when specifically that will happen. We know that they're working around the clock to try to find solutions.
Do you know of any stopgaps or policies that are in place in the meantime to try to help this transitional time, Suzanne?
I know that the Governor Kotek did the emergency funding. They're working on how to get that out and how fast they can get it out, so that would help for sure. And I think part of the issue is, even if it comes 2 weeks from now, let's say, it is still really challenging for older folks because all the expenses have gone up and they're still afraid. Is it going to last? Are they going to pull it back? Are they going to try something different? So I think the best thing we can do is keep getting people fed, figure out how to meet the need now, because those stopgaps are only stopgaps, and we don't know when the next shoe is going to drop, so to speak. So it's a really frightening time, and most older people, they are alone. They don't have that much contact. They're really isolated, so it's hard to continue to say, well, we can feed you today, but not tomorrow. And that's why we intend never to have a wait list. So
we know that your demand is going up. We're talking about that. But also some of your budget is tied to federal funds. Is that correct?
That's right. So about 30% of our funding is from Older Americans Act. And because there is no one in Congress right now, the Older Americans Act resolution has not been reapproved. So that is also at risk. Right now, with the shutdown, we have gotten most of our information's bid. It will last until December, but depending on how long the shutdowns last, that could be affected. And if they don't act to reauthorize the act, then those funds are also at risk.
So Suzanne mentioned, but Governor Kotek did issue that $5 million in emergency food assistance, declared a 60-day food emergency because of this. How far does that $5 million go?
The $5 million will help significantly. We also want to be honest about the size of the problem right now. So $5 million, which is going to go toward food purchasing at Oregon Food Bank and the 20 regional food banks that operate within the state of Oregon. But just to put it in perspective, SNAP issuance for November is $140 million statewide. And so we are at the same time very grateful at the support from the state. We also saw the governor issued $1 million for some of the tribal groups today. And $5 million equivalent to SNAP, that's about a day of SNAP benefits. And so it definitely helps. Every little bit helps. Every time somebody gives to your local food pantry or to a coffee shop or to a local business that's supporting, that's helpful. We also want to remind folks that kids in K-12 schools in Oregon, school meals are still available, as is the WIC program. And we've been told, at least through November, that those programs are on good financial footing.
And then with the 60-day emergency and with everything else, is the Oregon Food Bank changing anything or doing anything different right now? Besides the obvious, trying to help more people.
Yeah, I think one thing I will say is the community has really stepped up in support, and that means more dollars, more food. That really helps us purchase more food and make sure that we can really attempt to keep up with the demand for food, because we, like Suzanne said, we're seeing so many more people arrive at our doorsteps, and every little bit does help.
Yeah, I mean, the quote you said, the phone's on fire, it's just really difficult to hear that. I want to ask you both, I know you've both worked in food insecurity. This is clearly a passion for both of you. You mentioned that the COVID pandemic was kind of a similar feel. Anything else stand out to you, Suzanne, in the past of something similar like this situation?
I think from time to time, it's just whatever is happening with rising costs. And for older people that are on a fixed income, that always brings that uncertainty, that fear. How are they going to stay in their home? One of the things I heard recently is that the fastest growing homeless population in the metro area is older people, because they can't keep up with those costs. So I think it's one of those, the pandemic was big, this is big, but it also happens periodically every year along, as our property taxes go up and as the utilities have gone up drastically, and we get those calls every day. It's like, now what am I going to do? How am I going to pay the rent? Am I going to heat my home? And I just talked to a fellow, he's not even planning to turn his heat on because he won't be afford to heat his home and have food at the same time. So it's always, I think, for those folks on a fixed income, folks with chronic illness, folks with disabilities, just to keep on up every year, year after year, just brings anxiety and stress.
So that leads me to my next question. We only have a few minutes. How can people help seniors right now?
Right now, donate and volunteer. We always need volunteers, but right now, because we're signing up so many new people to get them food as fast as we can, we need volunteers as well. So go to mowp.org, sign up to volunteer and to donate.
And volunteering can be helping to chop food, it can be driving to deliver food, it can be answering phone calls. You're a great organization. I volunteered with you in the past, full transparency, but there are so many different jobs, I think, for anyone, depending on what your skill is or what you have to offer.
Yep, we have all sorts of jobs, and mowp.org will give you all of those ranges and pick something that works for you.
Okay.
It all helps.
What about for people who are wondering where their next meal will come from? What do you want to tell them?
Yeah, I want hang in there. My parents were on SNAP when they hit a difficult time, and we're all better off when we step up and help each other out. This moment shall pass, but there are resources out there. There's Meals on Wheels people. You can go to OregonFoodFinder.org to find a local food pantry near you. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Asking for help is an act of courage. Get out your Venmo, get out your Cash App. Ask your friends, because listen, we're all going to need help at some point. And if this is your turn to ask for help, that's okay.
That's a good way to put it, Matt. Thank you, Suzanne. Did you want to add
I was just going to add, and for older people, they always feel guilty. So many people feel guilty and think somebody needs it more than them. So it's great to go check on your neighbors, ask how they're doing, because they may not reach out and they're just going to suffer through it and thinking somebody needs it more than them. So please check on your neighbors, especially this time of year.
Suzanne, Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Your time. Well, still ahead here on Straight Talk, when we come back, we will hear from the Republican candidate for governor looking to apply her leadership experience at a county level statewide. Stay with us. And welcome back to Straight Talk. As Oregon heads toward primary season, now less than 6 months away, the race for governor is already underway. Republicans will decide who carries their party into November, and the field is already taking shape. Marion County Commissioner Danielle Bethell is in the running, challenging former House GOP leader and 2022 nominee Christine Drazen for the Republican nomination. Now, we have extended an invitation to interview Drazen, and we do look forward to having her on at a later date. But today, we meet Danielle Bethell, who announced she is running for governor back in April. Bethell has served as a Marion County Commissioner since 2021. In addition to serving as County Commissioner, Bethell owns a plumbing company with her husband. She's previously held positions on the Kaiser Chamber of Commerce, the Salem-Kaiser Schools Board of Directors, and the Association of Oregon Counties. Commissioner, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, appreciate your time. Okay, first, let's get right into it. What has prompted you to want to run for governor?
Well, I'll tell you, Oregon isn't moving in the right direction as far as outcomes when we look at the scale of homelessness and housing challenges and the economy. All we hear is negatives. And I have a track record of bringing real solutions to really hard problems. And I think we need a leader that understands what that looks like from the full scale of government, not just one perspective of policymaking.
What will you take from your experience as Marion County Commissioner into a statewide role like this?
Well, I've had the opportunity for the last 3 years to actually perform statewide. I was the president of the Association of Oregon Counties in 2024, and that's a 4-year position where you spend time building into it. That has taken me into every county in Oregon multiple times, and so I have a really firm grip on what challenges exist in all 36 counties uniquely. So taking that knowledge into the statewide role as governor is going to be really valuable to meeting local needs.
So you are, of course, entering the primary, which will be facing Christine Drazen, who was a frontrunner in 2022. For viewers, how do you differ as a candidate from Drazen?
Yeah, so I have appreciated Christine for some time. We've worked together. I helped her on her 2022 election race, and the distinction is she's a policymaker. She's worked in the legislature essentially her whole time in office, and I'm an executive. I'm running a government today, the 5th largest in Oregon, actually, and I have real life experience in being a problem solver from a leadership role in Oregon right now.
If you were governor today, what would the first thing that you would do in office be?
Well, there's a lot of things, so choosing one is difficult to prioritize because I think there's a lot of opportunity. But the first thing I want to do is really look at the cost-benefit analysis of the state and why so many businesses are leaving, establish a real understanding and foundation of the regulation that's forcing businesses out, and looking to shore that up. Oregon's government can't function if it doesn't have a thriving economy and a thriving business industry. What a lot of folks don't recognize and or spend a lot of time in the weeds on is how government is paid for. And that's actually off the backs of employees and employers. So we have to have a robust system of that in order for government to function well.
What are your top priorities that you want to pitch to voters next year and right now as kind of your leading things that you want to focus on in Oregon?
Yeah, I really want to have the big, bold conversation around the fact that we've spent way too much money on the homelessness and housing crisis in Oregon with really little to no outcome. There was a report recently released that showed the growth in Multnomah County essentially was 62% over the 2 years that Governor Kotek has been in office, and the state's invested over $1 billion in that. That's the wrong kind of investment with the wrong kind of outcome. I have to live within my means as a county commissioner and a business owner and a mom, and I expect the government to do that too. And also, we have a lot of people suffering in our community, not just individuals on the streets, but a lot of individuals in their homes, families, individuals, seniors, people with disabilities. And we're not having the real hard conversations. I expect to stand on the stage as much as possible to talk about in the weeds details of the systems of Oregon's government that's going wrong, and then offer real life solutions that I've performed as a county commissioner with real results that I believe Oregonians are after in a really hungry way.
What specific things do you feel like would help with the homelessness crisis, with the addiction crisis we're seeing? I know it seems like a really, really difficult, complex problem. So you're saying you don't agree with the way that we've seen from Governor Kotek. So what would you do differently specifically?
Well, specifically, I would look at the resources that the legislature's allocated to the Oregon Housing and Community Services Agency and call out the policy model that those funds are distributed on. Right now, every region in Oregon receives a share of those funds, and the state has a perspective on policy that you need to provide as low barrier access as possible. That interpretation is very broad and undefined in essence, and it needs to truly be defined. And there needs to be real accountability with those resources, not just because the taxpayer expects it, but because the people receiving those benefits deserve it. We need to have a more controlled space and a real statewide conversation of what are the community expectations of Oregonians by community. Turning government from a bottom-up approach instead of a top-down approach is doable and is necessary for all of us to have a voice at the table.
Another priority you've mentioned is livability and affordability in Oregon. What would you do around that to make Oregon more affordable for people?
Well, in general, we need to look at the industries that are thriving in Oregon and those that aren't thriving. We have essentially cut the legs off of our natural resource industry here in Oregon, and we need to get a real hard conversation going around, is that sustainable? Can we rely on the investments of federal government and income tax only to thrive in this state? How do we reduce the cost of living as a whole? And then we have to look at the market. Where are we purchasing our things from? And if we're having to pull them from all across the state and the country and the world, we're going to pay more for that. Right here in our own backyards, we have a lot of resources that we're not tapping into. There's a balanced discussion that is overdue between the environmental industry and the natural resource industry, and I want to lead that conversation. And I want to open back up our forests to natural resource access and thriving in those economies again. And I believe that'll bring the cost. It'll certainly bring down the cost of housing because we won't be importing lumber from Canada and Japan. We can cut those trees here and build houses.
Looking back, Oregon has had primarily Democratic governors, at least in recent history. How do you feel you want to reach or get the support of voters, maybe who are more in urban spaces or who don't generally vote Republican?
Yeah, well, I think that we need to have a practical choice. Somebody that's not coming in hard charging on an agenda of just policy in general. I'm not interested in coming into the governor's office with this big agenda around a particular topic. I want to come into office as a governor and manage the government. I want to run the state from a real local perspective. Voters are looking for somebody that they can relate to. I'm a fifth-generation Oregonian, a small business owner, a mom, a grandma, and I grew up in severe poverty. I understand the challenges of breaking that cycle and working hard and navigating the systems that are clunky and or broken. My lived experience offers me a different perspective in front of voters that I want them to lean into and ask about.
Right now, we're seeing a really big clash between state rights, state government, and federal government. How would you play a role in that, and what do you think should be done differently around that right now?
Well, I think that if you are going to come into a leadership space and just want to fight with other leaders, you're not going to gain any real outcomes. I believe we have to have balance and compromise. I'm not going to get everything I want, and they're not going to get everything they want. But if we see it in real true partnership and we can work towards the same goal, then I think we can accomplish a lot together. I look forward to having the conversation with the federal administration on some of their policies that I don't agree with and some of their policies that I do, and finding ways to integrate that conversation into real outcomes in Oregon's system.
What are some of the things that you do agree with right now and some that you don't?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't agree with the president on his approach to timber receipts. Oregon's a timber-driven state, as you're aware, and we have 17 counties that are in jeopardy of real financial loss because of the way the president drafted the big, beautiful bill in timber harvesting. I think we need to have a conversation so he understands what that looks like for Oregonians, and also just the natural resource industry as a whole across the country. The things I do agree with is real reform in our human service systems of care. I think we need more accountability and understanding as to who we're serving through social services. And I believe that there are people we want in that system because we should take care of them. And there are other people that we should lead to more self-sustaining results. But we need to have a plan and a bridge for that, not just a cut it all off and move forward.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for watching. A reminder, you can stream Straight Talk on your own schedule. You can download the free TV app, KGW+. It's available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. We'll see you back here next week.